Hello, BookTube. Recently, there was a bit of quiet, a calm in the BookTube haul wars that have been roiling in our little corner of BookTube lately, and it looked as if peace might break out. But then Randy Ray roared into town with a book haul of his own, and peace was shattered into 1,000 pieces. And so I went back to the Brattle bookshop here in Boston on a bitterly cold April morning and got a pile of books. A pile of books. I had a great time. I had a great visit. I would have walked out with smiles on my faces if I'd found nothing. But instead I found a pile of stuff. And because I keep saying pile, I want to stress what I stress always when I'm talking about book hauling, which is two things. One, I am not chucking these on a pile. I am reading them starting right away, and I get to them in due time. I'm not forgetting that I have them. And two, I'm reading them very much in search of keepers. I'm not assuming that all these things are keepers. I'm assuming that most of them are not. Of course, the goal is to have only keepers. The things that you just can't imagine being without. But there's also a slow motion library that I use the Brattle for. The Brattle is a used bookstore in downtown Boston. They have 3 stories that are completely stocked. But they also have a sale lot next door where the books are $1, $3, or $5. I spend a lot of time out in the sale lot. You can get books for dirt cheap. And as a result, I use the Brattle to, in a very slow motion kind of way, to cycle through books. I will get an armload of stuff that looks interesting to me. I will read it or reread it. Some of it I will keep. A great deal of it I will not. A great deal of it will go on the sale pile to go out the door. Just so you know, I'm not up to my eyeballs in all this stuff. So how are we going to do this? How? Let's start with the paperbacks. And we can start with the mass market paperbacks. The first 3 mass market paperbacks I got because we are staring down the barrel of a major BookTube event. June on the Range is coming up in just one thin month. June on the Range is an event created by Michael K. Vaughan designed to celebrate Western novels. And I go through quite a few Western novels in every June on the Range. Fortunately, there's always more out there. Who knows how many millions of Western novels there were. So I am currently gently, slowly stocking up on Western novels of all kinds. Western stories, I should say, because the first item here is not a novel. Western stories for June on the Range. It might be that I don't use any of these. It might be that when June on the Range comes around, I feel like reading one author, just nonstop all month long or whatnot. But for the meantime, I got 3 mass market Westerns. The first one is Gunsmoke Yarns, and it is an anthology of Western short stories. Selected by Gene Autry, this book says, and it also, for extra kicks, has an introductory page by Gene Autry. Gene Autry had nothing to do with this book. These stories were not selected by Gene Autry. Gene Autry barely knew how to read. He certainly did not write the introduction to this book, nor did he know this book existed. He probably only knew about this book as a tiny item in his bank balance. But I couldn't resist it. Not only because it's a short story anthology, which means it's going to have a lot of authors that I have never encountered, but also because it has a map back. That's what this is called, a map back. These are the locations in the first story in this anthology. Ranger Luck. It has nothing to do with any of the other stories in the anthology. We're all by different authors. In his introduction, Gene Autry says, "Some people I know are in the habit of poo-pooing Western stories. They say that these stories give a distorted picture of the West, that banditry and gunplay and assorted other violence have been the unusual, not the usual thing in the land of sagebrush and saddle leather. Suppose these folks are right, and a dry gulching or two hasn't been the everyday before breakfast happening, or even after dinner digestion settler for the average hombre. Still, there's been gun smoke aplenty, especially in the days of the Old West, and it's exciting things that people like to read about. The sheriff throwing down on the outlaws, the little rancher facing the syndicate's gunman with his .45 blazing, the honest cowpuncher tangling with crooked gamblers. And he includes here, what is this? 10 stories, I think. And one of them, the first one, Ranger Luck, is by Eugene Cunningham. It's taken from Zane Grey's Western stories, but it isn't a Zane Grey story. There are no famous names in here at all. There's, at least famous to me, Eugene Cunningham, Henry Herbert Knibbs, Ross Santee, S. Omar Barker, J. E. Grinstead, Charles Tenney Jackson, William Corson, George Petullo, William Byron Mowry, and O. Henry, which is a name that I know, at least. I'm going to count on this to introduce me to a wide variety of Western narrative styles. Great. Who knows? I might find a favorite author. Then we have two just... oh, no. Oh, no, I just noticed. The first one is by Eugene Cunningham. Okay, so I've got two pieces. I have a full novel by Eugene Cunningham. This is Spiderweb Trail. I look for this little imprint there of pocket books. That usually means that no matter how old this mass market is, it's going to hold up like crazy. I've never had a book with that sigil give up on me, break down on me at all. And this thing, I couldn't help but notice when I was thumbing through it, has had a print history. So this might be really popular. What do we got here? When Stephen Ware came home to Verde County, proud of his new rank as a ranger, Verdi Greybeards refused to treat him as anything but a cowboy who had worked on their outfits. As a ranger, Ware couldn't fight back against their insults as he could have if he were still a cowboy. He could only wait for a chance to prove himself. The chance came unexpectedly soon when Fyback, the storekeeper, was mysteriously murdered. At the same time, Black Alec Pride's Highline gang was raiding, and Steve wondered if the murder and Black Alec's blows were connected. The trail was as tangled as a spider web. Great. All right, so Eugene Cunningham. I will learn what he's like for a short story and a novel. And then we have Will Ermine. And this is Laramie Rides Alone. Not the best cover. I think we can agree. That's really bad on a number of different levels. But this is... What have we got here? Oh, no. The back just talks about Penguin's Signet Westerns. It doesn't tell us anything about the book. Well, let's see how it starts. In the white-hot bitter noon, a solitary horseman picked his way across the broken, lava-strewn plains of the Snake River Desert. A low ridge loomed ahead, and he made for it. Summer and winter winds forever fanned these barren wastelands. Today was no exception. The desert zephyr kicking up little dust devils that danced mockingly across the alkali flats. The rider went on unmindful of them, but his big, rangy black gelding eyed them suspiciously and lowered its head, began to snort violently as the biting dust settled in its nostrils. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to try everything for June on the Range. So those are the Westerns. And then I found a historical novel. I actually found 3 copies of this with 3 different covers because this was a hit. This book was a hit. This is by Jack Olek. And it came out in 1959. And it did well for him. Really, really well. It's a historical novel called Messalina. Who's a fairly well done. I got this copy. I didn't get either of the other 2 covers that were at the shop. 3 different printings of this were there. Which shows you how healthy a print run it had. There were 2 different printings of The Last Hurrah by Edwin O'Connor. I got this. I have read this. I don't think it had any of the 3 covers that I saw today when I read it, but I read this a long, long time ago. This is a woman who has gone down in history, perhaps wrongly, as a wanton, as a sexual marathoner and whatnot. I came to the story of Messalina the wrong way around. I came to her not so much through the scandal that you get in a figure like Suetonius, but rather in a far more obscure way that we don't need to get into in this video. She was deeply connected. She was deeply connected with Lucius Domitius Hannibarbus and his brother, and the whole family of the Domitii. And I know that family really well. I know everything there is to know about them, and she was connected with them. So I learned about her first in in an unromantic way, an undramatic way, and this is very dramatic. I can't wait to reread this. This is going to be so much fun to reread. And of course, she's also famous as a little bit of a bit character in I, Claudius. But here she has center stage. Her and a whole bunch of... Claudius, of course, is all in this book. And then this next book, it's a mass market paperback. I'm hoping that it holds up well. It was the only copy I could find of this in any format. And it is The Seven-Story Mountain by Thomas Merton. This old paperback of how a normal guy becomes a Trappist monk. The story of how he does it. It's a classic of Catholic literature. I read this a long, long time ago and was tremendously impressed by it. And then I think probably a decade after that, I read it again and was even more tremendously impressed by this. This is an incredible work of autobiography. But I hadn't really planned on rereading it, even though for years, Jason Harrigan, used to be a booktuber named Jason Harrigan, and for years and years, when we would shirtless Skype together, he was always on about me about the Seven-Story Mountain. You got to reread it. You got to reread it. You got to reread Seven-Story Mountain. And I put it off and hemmed and hawed, and then Jason left BookTube. And then now Christopher Russell, a new booktuber, the cartoon hedgehog of our own little corner of BookTube, now he's shirtless Skyping me about how you got to read Seven-Story Mountain. If I'm going to read it, you have to read it. Okay, fine. So now I have a copy of Seven-Story Mountain. I kind of like this. I kind of like the cover there, the dramatic cover there. I'm pretty sure that this old paperback will hold up for one reread. That's all I need out of it. So now I have this, and I will put it on the docket for this summer, so that people can stop bothering me about the Seven-Story Mountain. Okay. And then the last paperback is a trade paperback. It's a big Penguin trade paperback, and this is Gary Wills. This is his book Head and Heart: A History of Christianity in America. I read this when it first came out. I don't think I blurbed on this. John Leonard reviewing it for Harper's Magazine. Don't tell me. I got to read this. What does he say? Only someone who had made Will's own hard intellectual and moral journey would have come to appreciate American history as a grand oscillation, maybe even a dialectic between enlightenment, head, and evangelism, heart. You didn't know. You don't know what a dialectic is, for Pete's sake. Okay, no, I'm not blurbed on this, because I think this came out when I wasn't reviewing books. Right? That's probably true. 2007. So this would have come out right when I was getting back into reviewing books. I probably missed... I did read it. And I read it unfairly, because I read it thinking about criticism of Gary Wills. And that's not fair. I should have been thinking about it in terms of the subject, in terms of the book. What kind of a job does he do? So I will read this again without the famous... well, not famous anymore, but the once famous criticism that Christopher Hitchens leveled against this author, saying, you don't write this way on any other subject. Why are you writing this way about religion? Why do you change when you do this? Why do writers change when they write about this subject? I remembered this as being straightforward history and fairly good. So I'll happily give it another try. Then we go on to the hardcovers, and there's a gigantic pile of them. Honestly, I don't know how I got these back here. I don't have my old crew of teenage weightlifters are all gone. They haven't been around since COVID. So I have to do all this lugging on my own. But I did somehow. I am really a hero. The first one that we have here of these hardcovers, this is part of a set. I wish I had this whole set. This is Henry David Thoreau. This is Cape Cod. As an introduction by Henry Beston, who wrote The Outermost House, and it has illustrations by Henry Bugby Kane, who is one of my favorite illustrators. And it's in this Norton series of the writings of Thoreau. I wonder if they will tell me the whole series. I wonder if this book will. No, this one only lists the main woods. Also in this series, there's the Maine Woods. There's the Merrimack and Concord River. I think that Walden might also be in this series. They've got these spot illustrations by Henry Bugby Kane, and then I think full length illustrations as well. And I love this guy's work, and I have a couple of these. They all look like this. They all have the white on top and then the blue border on the bottom. I have a couple of these in this old Norton series, but I do not have them all. And it just kills me because I wish I did. I never see them. I saw this one today, and my first thought was, do you have this already? I'm a big, big fan of Cape Cod and Cape Cod books. And it turns out I did, but it was in terrible condition. So now I have a much better condition copy. So I got that on a gamble. And then, what do we got here? Oh, all right. These next three are little hardcovers. Rex Stout is the author. These are Nero Wolfe novels. I mentioned, I think, in a recent video that I am rereading Nero Wolfe. I'm just reading them all. I'm having a ball, having a blast doing it, and I'm popping them down. They're so easy to read. They're so addictive. They don't let you go. Most of them don't let you go. But I'm reading them as ebooks. I'm reading them on my Kindle, which is always with me. And when I was at the shop this morning at the Brattle, I thought, you haven't read Nero Wolfe in a print and paper book format in decades. And maybe it'll be different. Wouldn't it be fun to find some Nero Wolfe? And I did. I found three. I found The Doorbell Rang, which I know this one anyway because this is Nero Wolfe versus the FBI. It came out. When did this come out? The 1960s. 1965, and this is a damning portrait of the FBI, not only as insidious but also as incompetent, which was a little bit unusual to do then. Then we have Champagne for One, and In the Best of Families, which I think might be the last of the Nero Wolfe novels. I don't have the chronology down exactly right. Maybe not. Maybe this is either the last one or this is the mob one, where Wolfe's orchids get shot up in his flower room. But I have some Nero Wolfe in hardcover. I have some Nero Wolfe that I can read as physical books. I don't know if I'll want to do that, but it was worth the experiment. These were dirt cheap. It was worth the experiment. I mean, I've got them on my e-reader. There is nothing more convenient than that. I can just grab it and start reading, as opposed to where was I? Oh, I don't have to do any of that with my e-reader. So we'll see. I'll give it a try. Then we have an anthology by Joseph Wood Crutch, who was great on his own, but he did this is an anthology of his called Great American Nature Writing, with this gorgeous artwork on the back. Look at that. Look at how incredible that is. And I don't know if that artwork is recurs throughout the book. How wonderful that would be if this were illustrated. Well, there are little spot illustrations. I wonder if there's anything more, anything bigger. I've got charming spot illustrations throughout. But this is Crutch collecting great nature writing. What I'd really, I'm happy to have this. I'm happy to go through it. I love nature writing anthologies. But I would love to find, there's a volume of his collected nature writing that I would love to have. I would love to find that. Probably it's collectible. But who do we have in this thing? This is from, no, it doesn't say. Quotes from Sand County Almanacs. That links it in time. Well, anyway, who do we have here? Thoreau, John Moore, John Burroughs, good, great. Edwin Way Teale, Lewis Gannett, great, fantastic. Richard Byrd, Ernest Thompson Seton. Will Cuppy is in here. I wonder if his illustrations. Mark Twain is in here. His name's not Samuel Clemens. Samuel Clemens didn't write anything. Okay? So don't put Samuel Clemens in your table of contents. Mark Twain wrote things. I get so sick of making that point. Anybody else that I know? Well, Henry Beston is in here. Great. Fantastic. Oh, and so we do have one piece by Joseph Wood Crutch, The 12 Seasons. That's great. That was famous. That was a famous thing that he wrote. And also William Beebe, A Yard of Jungle. That's going to be wonderful. Beebe is great. I wrote about Beebe once in one of those pieces that I wrote that I would say certainly cannot be found. But I said that the other day about a piece of mine, and a bunch of you found it. You used something called a Wayback Machine to find it. But this is going to have a lot of nature writing from authors from whom I have nothing else. So that's wonderful. I have no Beebe at the moment. For instance, I have no John Burroughs. I have no John Muir, and that this is going to make up for that. That's wonderful. And then in terms of nature, we can continue. I found this. I mentioned the other day that a little pattern that seems to be forming at the Brattle is that I seem to be finding little books of nature writing. I found one on foxes. I found one on flying squirrels, and today I found one by Dorcas McClintock on raccoons. With the illustrations here are by J. Sharkey Thomas, and they are wonderful, just wonderful. They're all sorts of. They're all through here. There's so many illustrations here that the text actually works around them. It's just set around them. It's a very wise decision because they are lovely. And this is all about natural history of the raccoon, what they're like. That's great. I think raccoons are fascinating. I've actually met one. I knew someone who had one as a house pet. It was weird, very, very strange to meet. I think raccoons are incredibly intelligent. I think they're as intelligent as human beings, almost in the way of human beings. But the thing that was weird about the raccoon that I met is that you don't expect. You're just so accustomed with normal house pets like cats or dogs. You're so accustomed to them being physiologically different in one key way, which is that they don't have hands. They have paws. They don't have hands. And raccoons very much do. Oh my God, they very much do. They can do all sorts of things with their hands, very human type things. This is going to be a joy to read. Then we have a gigantic hardcover. This is an older thing. I am slowly amassing the things that I want here in this section. This is the Cambridge Ancient History. And there are 4 volumes out of I think they made 15 or 12 volumes. There are 4 that I want. I found another one today. This is Rome and the Mediterranean. So this is the Cambridge Ancient History, Rome and the Mediterranean. This is from, what do we have here? 218 to 133 BC. And from 133 takes us to Republican Rome and the change over to the Empire. These volumes are, first of all, they're wonderful. They've got these. I want to be very careful here. They've got these detailed fold-out maps with extremely detailed guidance for what's on them. There are a few. There are like 5 of them in here. They've got those, and each of the sections of the book is on some different subject. Of course, with this subject, you're going to get the Punic Wars. But it's not going to be just one author. It's a whole bunch of different authors pitching in. So who do we have here? This is edited by Cook, Adcock, and Charlesworth. But what about the chapters? Yes, okay. So chapter 1 is just Polybius. It's just all about Polybius, who's a huge way that we know anything about this. And it is by T.R. Glover. Then chapter 2 is Hannibal's. It's the Hannibalic War, and it's by B.L. Hallward. So if you don't like one person's narrative style, well, you're not going to have to put up with it for the whole of the book. Okay, all right. But Hallward writes about the whole of the Second Punic War. So the chapter 3 is the Roman defensive. Chapter 4 is Scipio and victory. And they're all written by the same guy. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Then Maurice Hallrow writes about Macedonia and Rome. Maurice Hallrow writes again about Macedonia and Rome, another chapter. He also writes about Rome and Antiochus. And then we have a whole separate chapter on the fall of the Macedonian monarchy, which is by P.V.M. Beneke. And it goes on from there. It goes on from there. I love these volumes. Absolutely love them. So very happy to find this one. Then this next one, it's an old... When did you come out? I want to say the 1940s, maybe the 1930s. 1937. This is by Odell Shepard, and this is Peddler's Progress, The Life of Bronson Alcott. It's an old biography of someone who is never going to have a new biography. That's never going to happen. It's an old biography of Bronson Alcott, who was a very strange and wonderful and weird man, not fitted for this world at all. Not fitted at all to normal living of any kind, and yet beloved by lots and lots of people, and loving himself. I wish I could point you to a towering literary classic of his, but it just didn't happen. He wrote a lot, but none of it makes any sense. It's just none of it does. None of it. He knew everybody in the New England of the pre-Civil War era. He knew in the time period, the long time period where I refer to Boston as something that hadn't been seen since the Italian Renaissance. When Boston was the hub of the universe, when Boston was full of these towering figures. And he knew them all. And they knew him and tried to get him work. They tried to help him, like Nathaniel Hawthorne, like Wendell Phillips, like Herman Melville, like, the list could go on and on. Like all of those people, Bronson Alcott at one point or another found it very necessary to borrow money from Lemuel Shaw, from Judge Shaw. Judge Shaw just lent money to everybody. He would take you to a steak shop down by the dock, and he would have a conversation with you about how much you need, and that would be that. He was a rough man, but a very generous man. And Bronson Alcott just proceeded blithely through it all, barely able to keep two pennies together. Even though he was passionate, and people loved him, and he could pack an auditorium if he gave a speech. If he went on the lecture circuit, as everybody did at the time, he could pack an auditorium. But unlike when Thoreau did it, or Emerson did it, when Bronson Alcott did that, you could ask the people who were filing out when the talk was over, immediately out. As soon as they're coming out the door, you could ask them, can you tell me anything about what that was about? They would have no idea. I don't know what anything of that was about. He had an unconventional way of teaching. He was a born teacher, but he had an unconventional way of doing it. He liked to like his students. He liked to teach them through conversation from the heart. And the pedagogy of his day did not appeal. That is not, they don't approve of that at all. So he was constantly going from one form of employment to another. And yet, he was utterly devoted to his wife and utterly devoted to his children. And one of his children, one of his daughters, a friend of the family approached with the idea of maybe her writing something. And she said, oh, Papa, I could do that, I guess. I have something in mind. I think it'll be about 22 pages. And Bronson Alcott said, well, my dear, I think the nice man wants a book. And her initial response was, oh, Papa, books are so tedious. That would be so much work. And he said, no, my dear, I think he wants a book. And the book was Little Women. So good that he insisted. And the best people in his day, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, Margaret Fuller, the best people in his day loved him and thought that he was visionary, that he was wonderful. But again, it's hard to pin him down. It's hard to make that case. And I don't remember if I've ever read the case that this guy does. I'll have to see. I think this will be charming. I think whether or not it's definitive, it will be a biography of Steve's Boston, of the era of Boston that is Steve's Boston, that I definitely want to keep. I'm sure that it will be full of charm, even if it's not the last word on Bronson Alcott. Okay, then we have something that I got because it was $1, but then I got it back here and realized that it's a double. So maybe we should do a giveaway. Maybe I should mail this to one of you. This is an oldie but a goodie. This was once upon a time a fixture in every bookstore in the country. This is Civilization by Kenneth Clark in a like-new copy with a plastic covering on it. That is his tour of the artwork of the West and how it changed and how it reflects the values of the West. And there's lots of color illustrations in here as well. This was a companion to a TV show that he did. And it's really good. It really is. It is worth remembering. I don't think this is in print anymore. Once upon a time, it was a staple. But I do have a perfect condition copy of this, also with a plastic covering. So I don't need this. I got it because it was dirt cheap and I wasn't 100% sure, but I would be happy to mail this to one of you, provided you adhere to my 3 rules for giveaways. Number 1 is that you have to know where you live, which you might think is self-evident, and yet I can't count the number of times that someone has sent me an incomplete address. I go to the post office, I mail the thing, which isn't free, and it doesn't get there, of course. And weeks later, the person says, that never reached me. Do we know what's wrong? And I say, well, I sent it to this address. And I say, I left out this bit of information, which is absolutely crucial, and it won't get to me without it. Oh, sorry about that. Could you try again? So number 1 is you have to know where you live. In other words, you have to give me an absolutely correct and complete mailing address on your first try. I'm not going to ask you, is this complete? Are you sure? You have to do it on your first try. It has to be correct on your first try. What you should have known when you were 4. You have to be able to tell me where you live. Number 2 is that you have to live in the continental United States. You can't live overseas, obviously, and you can't live in Alaska or Hawaii, because you could find this at a used bookstore in your neighborhood for far less than it would cost me to mail it with those mailing rates. And number 3 is you actually have to want the book, which again, you would think would be self-evident. But over the years of me sending out things to people on this channel, I have dealt many times with Captain Casual. Yeah, I might take it. Tim, Clark's okay. Guess. Don't know anything about him. Don't have a tenth of his learning. Never read his book or anything about any of the subjects of his book. But nevertheless, that's how you put it. Yeah, Clark's okay. I might take it. Thanks. It's great. Thanks for telling me what you might do. You have to want the book. You have to know where you live, and where you live has to be within Pony Express range. So if you do, feel free, and I will mail this on. And then the last thing I got, this is an old series of books. I love them. I have a tiny handful. I used to have the whole set. Life magazine used to do a science library of hardcovers. This was, 60 years ago. And they did it all sorts of different subjects, the universe, fossil man, that sort of thing, primates, and I love them. And I found one today that I haven't had in forever. Ships. How's that for a cover, huh? This is all about different kinds of ships and how they work, how they're put together. You have pictures, but you also have diagrams of different designs, the progress of shipbuilding, things like this, scientific analyses of wave function and whatnot. These were really made for a broad audience. I think they were made for a broad audience. I'm pretty sure that they were made so that you could enjoy it as an adult, but also read to your kids from it. I think, anyway. Certainly, if that wasn't the goal, it achieved that goal anyway, because that is definitely true with these things. And I have taken little kids through these books endlessly over the decades, and they love them. Absolutely love them. But I love them too. And I haven't had the ships one in forever. When did this come out? Do I even want to know when this came out? Life Science Library. C.P. Snow was one of the consulting editors for this series. This came out in 1970. Oh, God. All right. Well, that's 50 years ago. So there you go. That was the last thing that we got for this Brattle. So doing Steve Pyramid, we have Ships from the Science Library. We have Civilization by Kenneth Clark. We have the Cambridge Ancient History. This is volume... Did I name the volume? Volume 8. Which is Rome beating Carthage, basically. We have Peddler's Progress, Odell Shepard's biography of Bronson Alcott. How wonderful. We have Natural History of Raccoons. More nature writing. This is Joseph Wood Crutch. We have 3 Nero Wolfe novels. 3 out of 40? 50? Something like that. We have Cape Cod by Henry David Thoreau in this old Norton series that I wish I had them all. We have Head and Heart by Gary Wills about religion in America. And then finally, mass market paperbacks. We have The 7-Story Mountain so that the shirtless Skyping screaming sessions can maybe end and I can be left in peace to enjoy my giant killer shark novels. We have Messalina by a guy who also wrote a novel about Theodora, Justinian's emperor, that was also really good. And then 3 westerns. Laramie Rides Alone. Just an awful cover. He's in shadow, but it's the wrong shadow. What is that thing that's grabbing him? Is it a plant of some kind? Is it holding his gun? Anyway, Spiderweb Trail and Gunsmoke Yarns, an anthology of Western short stories that includes a short story by this guy, Eugene Cunningham. So I'm getting there for June on the Range. I am slowly building a reading pile for June on the Range that I might end up ignoring. I might decide I want to read all of Homer Kelton that I haven't read. I might decide that I want to spend the whole of June on the Range on Louis L'Amour, even though I've done that already. There's still plenty of Louis L'Amour to reread. Who knows? We still have a month. So there you go. That is a Brattle book haul in an attempt to quell hostilities on the borders. All of you have now been hauled into submission. I hope. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you, BookTube.